Hello and welcome to today's episode. I'm doing another episode after a long time. I was ill and then I had issues with my internet connection. Well, both of those problems are solved for now and I'm back. And as usual, I'm late to cover a topic. As usual. So let's start with the first one. Biden and Xi meeting. President Biden and President Xi met in San Francisco recently. President Xi agreed to putting restrictions on manufacture and exports of ingredients used to make fentanyl. Military-to-military dialogue between United States and China will be resumed. Other topics were discussed were trade protectionism, climate change and AI safety. Humanitarian issues like Ukraine, Gaza and Xinjiang were also discussed. The cost for a seat at the same table as Xi was as high as $40,000. Many American private sector elites attended this meeting, including Tim Cook, Elon Musk, Larry Fink, Ray Dalio, and others. Clearly, President Xi was there for American money and technology. This was acknowledged by John Kirby, at least the investment part. Foreign direct investment in China has plummeted recently. Many restrictions were put on China by USA and its allies on advanced technologies like AI and semiconductors. But during and after the summit, no major investment and trade announcements were made by the US government. So, there is a chance that United States and China cannot agree on globalization even further. They want to both sides want to decouple their economies from each other. At least that's probably where that summit is, where the conclusion of summit was headed, or you get the point. It was either invest in China and give us your technology, or we will decouple. What else will it be? So this summit was most likely a failure for China. Although I do like the fact that military-to-military dialogue between US and China will resume. De-escalation is always a good thing. A rumor that came out about President Xi during this summit, and that rumor is President Xi is just as mentally senile as President Biden. That's the rumor. If that is true, the leaders of most powerful countries in the world have leaders that belong to a senior citizen's home. The question is, how much control do they actually have over their bureaucracies versus their bureaucracies influencing and controlling them? After the summit, President Biden called Xi a dictator, and his Secretary of State Anthony Blinken visibly cringed. He was trying for a meeting between President Xi and President Biden for at least a year. He went to China to meet President Xi. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen did it too. The Chinese were playing hard to get, and Biden immediately ruined it after the summit. So this summit was either about Americans investing more and more money in China and not putting trade restrictions on China, on technology restrictions on China, or it was about both sides deciding to decouple from each other and de-risk from each other. The Chinese don't want to lose their trade, and the Americans don't want to lose their trade, the private sector at least, but geopolitics trumps the private sector. And I think that might be another direction, or another, how do I put this? That might be the route both sides decided to take. instead of the traditional investing in each other more. And you're seeing this right now. A lot of companies are pulling out of China and they're investing in India and other countries. There was, I think, American Military Veterans Pension Fund or something like that. They decided to pull out of China and decided to invest in India, the pension fund. There was another headline, China slows, India grows. So maybe they're deciding, you know what, we don't like globalization anymore. We benefited tremendously from globalization, and maybe we're going to de-risk from each other. Instead of going to war and sanctioning each other and Chinese economy tanking, but US economy tanking harder than Chinese. Instead of doing that, they will already de-risk from each other. So in case there is a war, both sides will have their supply chains secure. And that's what I think is happening. That's probably what is happening. But this summit was a failure for both sides. For both sides. And how long will the military to military communication will stay open? I don't know. But at least it's open for now. Next topic. Arab League OIC Summit on Israel-Gaza situation. There was a joint meeting of Arab League and Organization of Islamic Conference in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. The meeting of Organization of Islamic Conference was supposed to happen on November 11 and the Summit of Arab League on November 12. However, considering the situation in Gaza, Saudis decided to convene a joint meeting. Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi, the first Iranian head of state to visit Saudi Arabia, asked the gathering to designate the Israeli military as a terrorist organization. Turkish President Erdogan said, "What we need in Gaza is not pauses for a couple of hours, rather we need a permanent ceasefire." Many demands were made, including using oil as leverage, like the oil embargo and oil crisis of 70s. Freeze diplomatic, economic and airspace contact with Israel. Prevent US from sending weapons to Israel from US bases in the region. And a push for a ceasefire. These demands were rejected, notably by UAE and Saudi Arabia, but also by other countries like Bahrain, Morocco, Jordan and Egypt. This shows how far the foreign policy and diplomacy of Middle East has come. You don't want to get involved in other people's wars just because you share a religion with one of the sides. You want to de-escalate the situation politically, diplomatically and legally. And slowly the Arab world, unlike Turkey, the Arab world is adopting a smarter foreign policy, slowly but surely. And also, they don't like the fact that wherever Palestinians go as refugees, they have caused trouble in Jordan, in Egypt, and there was one other country, Lebanon. Yes. And they may have been responsible for radicalizing the Lebanese population and the Lebanese civil war. May have been. I don't know. People allege that. But wherever there's refugees, they go as refugees. They cause trouble. And current Israeli policy, military policy, means that the Gazans or the Palestinians or Gazans might become refugees once again, and they will cause trouble for the Arabs, or they can just send them to Europe. I think that's what is going to happen. I mean, I'm laughing. This is a serious situation, but they're probably going to send them to Europe, most likely to Germany, and then via Italy. They'll most likely go to Germany and they'll spread around in Europe and also to the British. Even though British people voted to get out of European Union over immigration and trade issues, they're going to come to Europe. Arabs won't take them because Hamas, which controls Gaza, is an offshoot of Muslim Brotherhood. Muslim Brotherhood is anti-monarchist, like terrorist organization. They want theocratic regimes like the one Iran has in all over the Middle East, all over the Arab world. They want to overthrow all the monarchies, the Muslim Brotherhood. And that's why they don't want them, obviously. And given how Palestinian refugees have caused trouble, Arab populations don't want them either, although they'll say otherwise. But they don't want refugees in their countries. Somehow Europe does, or European elites do, to be more specific. Which brings me to the next topic: election results in Argentina and Dutch, or the Netherlands. Argentine elections and Dutch elections. Javier Milei won elections in Argentina. He's the first libertarian candidate to win an election. That's why I'm excited for this. I lean towards libertarianism, but I'm not strictly a libertarian and open to other ideas. So I'm excited, but I'm also skeptical, and I'll tell you why. Inflation in Argentina is more than 100%. In India, it's about less than 5%. In US, somewhere around that. In many countries, they have less than 20%. In Pakistan, they have more than 30 and less than 40%. Argentina has 130, 140% inflation. Argentina is the biggest receiver of IMF loans, and economists circles, Argentina is known as the nation of beggars. This is despite Argentina being one of the richest countries in natural resources, or they have plenty of natural resources, mainly lithium or the white gold. Argentina is in this situation because of bad government policies called Peronism. Peronism essentially is a weird combination of communism and Nazism with little bit of Latin American local politics. Javier Milei campaigned on economic prosperity by cutting government spending, closing government institutions including the Argentine Central Bank, and create a business-friendly environment. So, he promised closing of Argentine Central Bank and replacing Argentine peso with US dollar. In a way, this is a good choice. Despite how bad USD looks right now, peso is much worse. And the Argentinian government have been extremely irresponsible with their spending, and they have tried to finance it all through the Argentine Central Bank by printing money. That's what they have done. The US has done a lot of the similar things with the US government with their central bank printing dollars to fund their policies, but Argentinian government has been a lot worse in this situation. So despite how bad US dollar looks right now, peso is much worse. If the US government is displeased with Argentine government, it will sanction Argentina, and the economic situation in Argentina will be basically what it is right now. Yeah, that's how bad it is. They're not under sanctions, but their economy is so bad that you might think they might be under sanctions. But if Argentina is left alone by US, this is a huge or possibly a fatal blow to Peronism. So adopting adopting US dollar will help Argentina a lot, because they cannot spend and create and spend currency that does not belong to them. So they'll have to cut back on their budgets. They'll have to cut back on their spending. They have to privatize and create a business friendly environment for Argentina to prosper. So adopting US dollar will help Argentina a lot, at least for few years, until the United States itself enters hyperinflation or a reverse market crash. Which means Argentina will also enter hyperinflation again, essentially repeating what has happened in Argentina in last 100 years. This is just a short-term solution. In the long term, USD will not help Argentina. The president-elect Javier Milei said Argentina will not join BRICS. He's pro-US. That could have been a good strategy in a unipolar world, where the US is the only superpower. This was the world we had for the last 20-30 years, roughly after 1991 to till 2020. He said he doesn't want to trade with Brazil under Lula or China. He doesn't want to trade with any socialist country, anyone socialist. Considering him adopting USD for Argentina, we can forget about Argentina dealing with Russia or Venezuela. Like I said, in a unipolar world, this is fine, but our world is increasingly becoming multipolar. China, Brazil and Venezuela would be great trading partners for Argentina, considering Argentine geography, location and natural resources. So China is good at refining lithium and making batteries. China has a near monopoly on the rare earth minerals, all the mining metals that are required for production of electronic goods. So China and Argentina has plenty of those rare earth metals like lithium. So China is a great trading partner for Argentina. Brazil is the biggest economy in Latin America and most powerful country in Latin America. Therefore, Brazil is also a great partner. Venezuela is the closest country to Argentina that is rich in oil. Everywhere else, every other country is too far away. United States is just a continent away. Middle East, the Arabs are an ocean away, and so is Russia. So Venezuela should be one of the biggest oil trading partner for Argentina, I guess you can say. So China, Brazil and Venezuela, and he's turning his back on all of them. That's terrible. Just because you don't like socialists doesn't necessarily mean you cannot trade with them. So not a fan of his foreign policy. He's making moves that could have been good moves in 2010s or before 2010s. I think his policies will not work long term because he's relying on US at a time when US is declining economically. This is not a good time to be pro-US. This is a time to hedge your bets, be as neutral as possible, get as many concessions and deals as you can from US, Europe, Russia and China. But he's putting his bets on US. That's why, both with his currency and with his foreign policy. That's why I'm skeptical of his policies despite my libertarian leanings. He's implementing right policies at the wrong time. Simple as that. Or that's what he promised to. He could be another politician and he doesn't do any of those. We don't know. We'll have to watch him. Other big elections that happened recently were the elections in the Netherlands. Geert Wilders won elections in Netherlands. He's anti-immigration and a huge Eurosceptic. Basically a repeat of Brexit or 2019 British elections. We all know what happened there. After they left European Union, they increased immigration somehow. Somehow the British government increased immigration after they left European Union. They left European Union to reduce immigration, but they somehow managed to increase it, the British government. He's the latest in line of European politicians who are running or ran on an anti-immigration campaign and won. Most of those that came before him failed to implement anti-immigration policies or lied about their policies. For example, like I said, Brexit, but also Giorgia Meloni of Italy. What happened there? She ran an anti-immigration campaign. More immigrants are coming to Italy now. Just like Brexit. So the question is, will Wilders succeed in implementing policies that he ran on? Like Viktor Orban of Hungary and the Polish party that the Polish Conservative Party that ran Poland until this year, and Poland has elected a left-wing government under Donald Tusk who's extremely pro-EU. I think he was one of the leaders of European Union of before Ursula von der Leyen. Before Ursula von der Leyen or before the predecessor of Ursula von der Leyen. That's who Donald Tusk is, and now he's in charge of Poland. So Poland is probably fallen. Netherlands has elected a politician who's anti-immigration. That's what he's campaigned on, and he's won. Poland has reversed course. British somehow managed to increase immigration. Same with Italy under Giorgia Meloni. Viktor Orban is the only European politician who hasn't increased immigration like other European countries, and not like legal immigration but like refugees and illegal immigration. So will Geert Wilders will he be just like Viktor Orban, or will he be latest in the line of the European politicians who ran on an anti-immigration campaign, won the elections, and then failed to implement those? There is a clear trend emerging in the West of right-wing or even far-right politicians winning elections. These leaders are generally anti-immigration, anti-woke, anti-war, pro-diplomacy, pro-domestic manufacturing, and fiscal conservatives. These stances are becoming popular, and they are once again a sign of declining empire and civilization. Why would you be anti-immigration? Why would you be anti-liberalism or anti-woke? Because you want to preserve your culture, and because you think you're losing the culture, you think you're losing your demographic majority, and you're fiscally conservative, you're pro-domestic manufacturing. These are conservative policies, generally speaking. Therefore, a sign of declining empire and civilization. Why would you want to conserve something? Well, because you're losing it. And they're trying to stop a decline of their empire and the civilization. The decline of American empire and decline of Western civilization. That's what the people are trying to do. So I'll be watching what happens in Netherlands and Argentina. I don't have a lot of hope from either of these, but in the long term, if they pull something off, great for these countries. Next topic. Next topic. 64 bank branches shut down in US in a week. Many banks in US have shut down their branches in multiple states. Between November 12 and 18, PNC Bank shut down 19 branches, JP Morgan Chase 18, Citizens Bank 8, Bank of America 5, Citibank 2, and others closing one branch office. Now we must remember that opening and operating a bank branch office is expensive, and with the rise of digital banking, it is unnecessary to open branches that lose money. Maybe with COVID lockdowns, people embraced digital banking and these bank branches were closed because they were too expensive to operate. But considering 3 banks failed, not 3 bank branches, but 3 banks failed in early 2023. This could be bad. Despite what official numbers say, US is due for another recession if the Federal Reserve keeps interest rates high. But if the Federal Reserve lowers interest rates under pressure from, say, a president running for re-election, the American economy will have a reverse market crash. A reverse market crash will create a huge boom in stock markets and asset prices. But for normal people, it will cause hyperinflation. Just like Weimar Republic, Venezuela, Zimbabwe, etc. The West is going to be in rough shape for at least until 2035-2040 if the policies are smart. But if mistakes are made, it will trigger a total collapse of both Europe and United States and the Anglosphere. So this is a very delicate time for the West. They must do everything they can to preserve their culture, their economy, their institutions, but in a way they have to remove current liberal elite who are not good with culture, who are not good with economy, and they have to preserve it as much as they can, make smart policies, and that's the best case scenario. Best case scenario is a recession and possibly a Great Depression. Possibly. But the worst case scenario is a total collapse of both Europe and United States. I'm more optimistic about United States than Europe because United States is rich in natural resources. It can be food self-sufficient and it can be energy self-sufficient. Europe could have been self-sufficient in food and energy if either they have partnered up with Russia or if the regime change campaign Russia through a proxy war in Ukraine was successful. They failed to create or cause a regime change in Russia, and Russians are winning in Ukraine, and they have alienated Russia, and they don't have food self-sufficiency or energy self-sufficiency. And at least with United States is an immigrant country. Remember, when United States got its independence, most of the colonies were Anglo-Saxon in nature. Now the highest ethnicity by numbers is German. That's in United States. How is that? Basically through migration. United States is really good at integrating its immigrants. And most of its immigrants are from Latin American countries. They're Christian and they're ready to work hard and they can adapt to the American culture. Europe mostly doesn't have a culture left. Their culture is just a copy of United States, and they have imported Muslims. Not like the good, hardworking Muslims, but those who are there for the social security, for welfare, and they don't do anything, they are not productive, they are not contributing to the society, and they are radicalized. So Europe doesn't have food security, energy security. It has lost its industries, less like the United States. And they have really, really bad demographics. Europe is most certainly gone. I don't know, for 50 years or 100 years or for centuries, for just a decade, I don't know what time, but Europe is gone. United States may have a chance to save itself. Next topic, Sam Altman fired from OpenAI. Let me help you catch up with what happened at OpenAI if you haven't already caught up. Sam Altman was fired by OpenAI board on Google Meet. Apparently one of the AI geniuses, Ilya Sutskever, approached the board and the board made the decision to fire Sam Altman. His friend and another board member, Greg Brockman, also left the company after this news came out. He was temporarily replaced by the interim CEO, Mira Murati. She asked the board to bring back Sam Altman. She was replaced by another interim CEO, Emmett Shear, co-founder of Twitch. Meanwhile, Sam Altman was hired by Microsoft to lead its new AI division. Emmett Shear also asked to bring back Sam Altman. More than 700 employees out of 770 wrote a letter to bring back Sam, or they'll follow him and leave the company. Sam Altman came back to OpenAI and a new board was created. So what happened? I've collected some theories that were on the internet. Theory 1. Sam Altman going off on a new hardware venture. To start a new hardware venture. The reason given by OpenAI for firing Sam Altman was lack of clear communication. It was rumored that Sam Altman approached the Arabs and the SoftBank for funding of his new hardware venture with Apple's former designer, Johnny Ive. It was said that Sam Altman wanted to reduce OpenAI's reliance on Nvidia. This distracted him from OpenAI, and that's why the board fired him. Theory number 2. OpenAI achieved AGI internally. Reuters reported Q-Star, a new AGI that OpenAI had achieved internally. Sam Altman is said to be an accelerationist, meaning he doesn't care about the consequences of AI. While the board and Ilya wanted to slow down because of safety concerns. OpenAI works kind of like Mozilla, a non-profit organization that controls a for-profit company of the same name. And the non-profit wanted to slow down because of safety concerns, while Sam Altman didn't. That's the second theory. Theory number 3. Corporate sabotage by rivals. Few days between Sam Altman's firing and coming back, there was a rumor that OpenAI board asked for a merger with Anthropic while OpenAI was bleeding talent. Fingers were pointed towards Adam D'Angelo, a board member who's also a CEO of Quora. Anthropic is a rival of OpenAI and has a product called Claude, although Anthropic isn't as advanced as OpenAI. Anthropic's main backer is Google and it runs on Google Cloud Platform, just like OpenAI runs on Microsoft Azure Cloud. This call of merger after firing of Sam Altman raised eyebrows about a potential sabotage by Google and Anthropic as they cannot catch up to OpenAI. That's theory number 3. Theory number 4. Sabotage by China. One of the board members of OpenAI was a person named Helen Toner. Her education background includes studies in China. She published a paper or an article in which she was critical of Sam Altman and she considered OpenAI's progress as a threat to humanity. She was one of the board members involved in the sabotage of OpenAI. And considering the current US-China AI arms race and her education background, people suspected that Chinese government is involved or was involved in the sabotage of OpenAI, which is, along with Nvidia, the best AI company in the world right now, and gives an edge to United States over China, both Nvidia and OpenAI. That's theory number 4, sabotage by China. Well, who came out the biggest winner? Well, the biggest winner was obviously Microsoft. Microsoft has invested $13 billion till date, $13 billion in OpenAI, and owns 49% of OpenAI. And OpenAI's current valuation is around $90 billion. So Microsoft, how was Microsoft the biggest winner of this whole OpenAI drama? Well, they approached Sam Altman and Greg Brockman and hired them. And they almost pulled off an acqui-hire, which is a term in Silicon Valley, which means acquiring a company by hiring its talents. And that's what Microsoft almost did. And if the 700 employees out of 770 walked out of OpenAI, they probably would have joined Microsoft by following Sam Altman's footsteps, basically. They would have joined this new AI division of Microsoft. Sam Altman came back, and Microsoft, who owns 49% of OpenAI, didn't, I guess you can say, waste their money, because OpenAI is now rid of people who might sabotage OpenAI. The board is gone, most of them. I think Adam D'Angelo is still there, which means he wasn't the one who sabotaged OpenAI. Helen Toner is gone, meanwhile, at least out of the board. And there's a new board created. Sam Altman, Adam D'Angelo is there. Larry Summers, I think he was the former US Treasury Secretary, and some other person named Brian. I think I'm forgetting his name. I haven't written it here. These people will lead the new board. So if Sam Altman was fired and that decision was final, Microsoft would have won just by acquiring OpenAI employees, 700 employees, and they already have access to all of OpenAI's technologies that OpenAI has available right now. Microsoft has. So they effectively could have pulled off an acquisition with just $13 billion instead of $90 billion. But OpenAI didn't collapse, and their investment is safe, and I think they'll get a board seat. So winner was Microsoft. And they'll probably make a movie about this in the future. Just like there was the movie The Social Network about Mark Zuckerberg. There'll probably be a movie about this OpenAI drama. Last topic. Apple announces RCS integration. Google was campaigning, nudging Apple to adopt RCS for years. They promoted this campaign using the hashtag #GetTheMessage. Well, Apple announced that it will adopt RCS, Rich Communication Services, messaging standard. This will come to iPhones next year via a software update. Think of RCS as next-gen messaging standard from mobile network providers after SMS and MMS. RCS will bring features like read receipts, typing indicators, and most important, high-quality photo and videos compared to MMS. Also, RCS can work over Wi-Fi as well. Unfortunately, unlike Google's RCS implementation, Apple's RCS will not have end-to-end encryption. Also, Apple's iMessage is not going anywhere. This means iPhone to iPhone communication will still be iMessage when on internet or Wi-Fi is available on both iPhones. iPhone to Android messaging or vice versa will be on RCS when internet or Wi-Fi is available both on the iPhone and on the Android. If any one of the phones, whether they are Android or iPhone, if any one of the phones that don't have Wi-Fi or internet access available at the time of messaging, then that message will be SMS or MMS. Also, RCS messages will still appear green on iMessage. So normies who use iMessage will still think of RCS as a terrible way of messaging. Well, why did Apple implement RCS then? EU regulations. EU is about to implement its Digital Markets Act. This act will give users more choice for default apps, loosen up app store restrictions, make messaging apps more interoperable. Basically, it will free up users from a lot of BS practices of Apple, Google, Microsoft and hardware manufacturers. For example, after this act is implemented, Windows users can remove Microsoft Edge, change Windows search setting from Bing to Google, and remove the news widgets. Apple has to free up the iPhone and iPad App Store restrictions, where Apple users can download applications from outside the App Store just like they can do on macOS. EU has been trying to force Apple to open up iMessage as well, while Apple has been arguing that because iMessage has a very low user base in Europe, it doesn't fall under the Digital Markets Act. Adopting RCS might be Apple's way of saying to EU, our iMessage app is now open and interoperable with other messaging apps. Now leave iMessage alone. That might be Apple's way of saying to EU. That's the most common theory. Other theory is that American mobile network providers, who have a lot of influence over phone makers and also the US government, forced Apple to do so before the US government does. I don't think this will change much for users in most countries who use third-party messaging apps like WhatsApp, Telegram, WeChat and others. They will continue to use these apps and are unlikely to change their habits unless their government bans messaging apps used by the most people. Like say India banning WhatsApp or China banning WeChat. So what changes? Ads. Mainly SMS ads. There was a report few months ago, or maybe it was last year, that many companies in India were sending full multimedia RCS ads to people in India instead of sending SMS ads. Of course, that's why Google is pushing for RCS. And for many Android users, RCS means Google Messages will be your default messages app or default SMS app, and third-party messaging apps will become obsolete. So anyway, I've recorded this episode after a long time, and I'm glad I'm finally doing it again. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you like this, share it with your friends. If you have any feedback, give your feedback in the comment section. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you guys very soon.